watching University News Channel 1. I am Stephanie, your host for the evening. We have a special topic to discuss tonight about the trading relationship that the United States has with China. Then, to understand this relationship, we need to look at the history, the facts of the GDP, salary bases and the prices of common goods, and also how both economies are affected. To begin, we would like to go to Mai, who will highlight the trading history between both countries. Mai?
Thank you, Stephanie. Trading with China didn't become big until the 1970s, when Nixon was in office. According to the Asia Pacific Journal, in 1971, President Richard Nixon announced he would visit Communist China, which aimed at readdressing inflation and unemployment. Nixon was desperate because during his administration, the U.S. dollar devalued by 8%. By 1979, the two governments moved to eliminate the remaining legislative and administrative hurdles to commercial relations. The U.S. has now always been the giver and China the taker. What holds for the future only time will tell, but let's hope that it is prosperous and gets better. Thank you. Back to you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Mai, for the brief look at history between two huge countries. We know that there's always been a long history of trade between both countries, as well as the transition of what country makes what product. To put in context, China is a large trade partner with 124 countries according to Visual Capitalist. The United States is a large trade partner as well, but with only 56 countries. To focus more on the United States and China relations with trading, we have brought our special guest, Paige. Paige is a research consultant and expert with foreign trade, especially with China and the United States. Welcome, Paige, to our segment.
Thanks for having me here. It's really exciting to learn and understand about foreign trade, especially recently since the Americans have been more aware of what is made in China and how they use their spending power. While it is a good thing that the United States trades with China, it is also a gray area.
So first, why are so many Americans sensitive with purchasing items that are made in China? Many Americans are conscious of their purchases, and it's a growing trend.
Well, China has routinely made errors in recording obligations with the World Trade Organization and also allegedly cyber espionage against the United States. This is a definite red flag for Americans, since to them it is important to support our country first and then trade with outside sources. So as a result, Americans have decided to take a firm stance on purchasing things that are not made in China. So let's take a look at the facts and compare the two countries. First of all, we have China with land area of 9,802 square miles, where the United States has 9,683 square miles. Population, a little bit different. Population in China, 1.38 billion people, where the United States only has 320 million people. GDP growth, China, we have 7.4 average GDP growth, where the United States only has 2.4% average GDP growth. We'll talk about what that means later. The average salary for a Chinese worker, 93,000 yuans, the equivalent of $14,600, where the United States has $44,888 for the average worker. While these numbers seem unbalanced, when we look at the purchasing power parity, or PPP, the numbers become even more unbalanced. PPP is a way to account for national differences in the cost of living. For example, looking here statewide, there is a higher cost than living in California. Housing, food, even a haircut costs more than what it would pay or cost in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. The PPP also tends to make developing countries like China look more wealthy than what the normal GDP would show. PPP is less useful in measuring goods and services that cannot be adjusted for the cost of living. Nominal GDP takes a look at everything but doesn't measure for environmental or social costs. According to IBT Times, in 2013, the average American was more than 5 times as wealthy as his or her Chinese counterpart.
Another interesting point that many may not know is that China continuously undervalues the yen in relation to the US dollar. President Obama has recently been meeting with the Vice President of China to talk about this issue and just to sort it out and try to make any change. But there is very little change that has been occurring. For $1 US, it's equivalent to 6.47 yen.
Now I'd like to invite Mai to show us the difference between some common goods between China and the United States. In the United States, an average worker makes $44,888, and the Chinese worker makes $14,600. And with this, we can purchase some of these goods and their differences. Mai?
Here we have a comparison of 2-liter of Coke, we pay 41% more than China, an average of 50 cents per bottle. Right here is an average athletic shoe, which we pay 57% less than China. And then here we have our car rental, which we pay 63% more than China, a daily car rental. And then here is bus fare, which we pay 94% more than China. And last, jeans, we pay 59% less than China.
Thank you, Maya and Paige, for that wonderful illustration as far as common goods. Last topic for this evening's segment is on GDP. Now, as we know, GDP is the measure of all goods that are made within a country's borders but do not include environmental or social costs. The GDP is measured by this equation listed below, which is consumption, government spending, net exports, and investments. So here we are, we have a couple of numbers that we would like to show to you as far as looking at China and the United States. Our exports is at 2.34 trillion, and then our imports are at 2.85 trillion, which creates a negative net export for us. This affects our GDP and it lowers it. China's exports are the same, and their imports are actually at 1.96 trillion, helping their GDP since their net exports is positive. The US GDP is still higher at 17.42 trillion compared to a 10.36 trillion for China. National income also, as you can see, is relatively close. So China is just above the US at 17.92 trillion. GDP is helpful because it helps raise wages and it decreases unemployment. So now we would like to look at each country individually, just on a closer scale. So right now we have China that's up here with their government spending. And as you can see, from 2012 to 2013 with government spending, it actually increased to $0.12 trillion. With their interest rate, it did decrease, only 0.1%, but it's still a decrease on that. And then their GDP actually increased $1.03 trillion. So what does this mean? With an increased government spending, a decreased interest rate, and with the GDP going up, it actually creates expansionary fiscal policy. So now we're going to take a look at the United States between 2012 and 2013. So between 2012 and 2013, for the United States government spending, there was absolutely no change. For the interest rate, we were able to decrease it 0.3%. And then for our GDP, it was actually increased 0.6 trillion. So what does this mean? The United States has kept the government spending the same, but lowered the interest rate to promote the spending and in turn raise the GDP. China uses similar tactics by decreasing their interest rate and increasing government spending. This is an expansionary fiscal policy expressed by both countries. The United States has a strong economy that strives on finance and consumption from the largest class, the middle class. China is alike when looking forward, but is more resource-driven. We will see in the future of China going from manufacturing to a consumerist economy. Thank you for watching our segment. Have a great evening.